Today I'm gonna overview a comprehensive book, which is Immanuel Kant's Critique of Pure Reason. This overview explains the book's context, core ideas, structure, and its lasting philosophical impact in a clear and engaging way. So, let's delve into the core discussion. Overview of Critique of Pure Reason by Immanuel Kant. When we speak of the great philosophical works that have shaped the modern world, Immanuel Kant's Critique of Pure Reason sits at the summit. Published in 1781, with a second edition in 1787, this monumental book is dense, challenging, and transformative, often revered as one of the most influential texts in Western philosophy. For anyone wishing to understand the foundations of how we think, know, and perceive the world, Kant's magnum opus is essential reading. In this video, we'll break down the main ideas, structure, and historical significance of the Critique of Pure Reason, providing you with a clear and concise guide to its enduring intellectual legacy. Context and motivation. To appreciate Kant's achievement, it's important to understand the philosophical landscape he was responding to. The centuries before Kant had been dominated by two major schools of thought, rationalism and empiricism. Rationalists like René Descartes, Baruch Spinoza, and Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz believed that knowledge could be acquired through reason alone, independent of sensory experience. Empiricists, such as John Locke, George Berkeley, and David Hume, argued that all knowledge comes from sensory experience, and that our understanding of the world is ultimately grounded in what we can perceive. While both traditions made significant advances, each faced serious limitations. Rationalists struggled to explain how their purely logical truths could apply to the messy, contingent world of experience. Empiricists, meanwhile, had difficulty explaining how we could have universal and necessary knowledge, like mathematics or causality, if all we know comes from limited, particular experiences. Kant's Critique of Pure Reason attempts to reconcile these traditions, asking, how is knowledge possible? And, more specifically, how is synthetic a priori knowledge, knowledge that is both informative and necessarily true, possible? His answer would revolutionize philosophy, giving birth to what he called Transcendental idealism. The structure of the book, the Critique of Pure Reason, is notoriously complex, but its architecture can be outlined as follows. 1. Preface and introduction. Kant sets out his aims, introducing key terms like a priori, knowledge independent of experience, and a posteriori, knowledge dependent on experience, as well as the distinction between analytic and synthetic judgments. 2. Transcendental doctrine of elements. This is the heart of the work, divided into two parts. Transcendental aesthetic. Kant examines the faculties of sensibility, how things appear to us in space and time. Transcendental analytic. He investigates the faculties of understanding, proposing the famous categories by which the mind structures experience. Transcendental dialectic. Kant critiques the misuse of reason when it tries to go beyond possible experience, leading to illusions and metaphysical confusion. 3. Transcendental doctrine of method. Kant discusses the correct method for metaphysics and the limits of pure reason. Let's break down these sections and their core ideas. Key concepts explained. 1. The Copernican Revolution in philosophy. Kant's central innovation is often called his Copernican Revolution. Just as Copernicus shifted the center of the universe from the Earth to the Sun, Kant shifted the center of philosophical inquiry from the objects we perceive to the mind that perceives them. Instead of assuming that our knowledge must conform to the external world, Kant proposed that the external world, as we experience it, conforms to the structures of our mind. 2. Sensibility. Space and time. In the Transcendental aesthetic, Kant argues that space and time are not properties of things in themselves, noumena, but forms of intuition, ways in which the mind organizes sensory data. Every experience we have is structured by space and time, but these are not features of the world out there. Rather, they are the lenses through which we must perceive anything. 3. Understanding. The categories. Moving to the transcendental analytic, Kant claims that our minds apply certain fundamental concepts, what he calls categories, to the raw data of experience. These categories include causality, substance, unity, plurality, and others. Without these mental structures, our experience would be a chaotic stream of sensations, never forming coherent objects or events. For example, causality is not something we learn from experience, Kant argues. Rather, we bring the concept of causality to experience. We cannot help but interpret events as related by cause and effect, because this is how our mind organizes phenomena. 4. Phenomena versus noumena. Perhaps the most famous distinction in Kant is between phenomena, the world as we experience it, and noumena, things in themselves, independent of our perception. Kant claims that we can only ever know phenomena, the world as structured by our own faculties. Attempts to know noumena, or things as they are in themselves, lead to confusion and error. 5. The limits of pure reason. In the Transcendental dialectic, Kant explores what happens when reason tries to go beyond possible experience. For example, when it speculates about the soul, the universe as a whole, or God. He shows that the pure reason, when misapplied, leads to antinomies, contradictory conclusions that cannot be resolved. For instance, both the claim that the universe has a beginning in time and the claim that it does not can be logically supported, but both cannot be true. Kant argues that such problems arise because we are trying to apply our categories outside the realm of possible experience. Synthetic a priori knowledge. One of Kant's greatest contributions is his account of synthetic a priori knowledge. Traditionally, philosophers thought that all a priori knowledge, known independently of experience, was analytic, true by definition, like, all bachelors are unmarried. Kant shows, however, that some knowledge can be both informative, synthetic, and necessary a priori. Mathematics and basic principles of natural science, for Kant, are examples of synthetic a priori knowledge. They tell us new things about the world, but are not learned from experience. The impact of Kant's work, the Critique of Pure Reason, is not an easy read, but its impact has been profound. Kant's philosophy set the agenda for much of the 19th and 20th centuries. German idealists like Fichte, Schelling, and Hegel sought to expand on Kant's insights. Later philosophers, from the existentialists to the logical positivists, grappled with Kant's claims about the limits of knowledge and the nature of reality. Perhaps Kant's most lasting legacy is his argument that the mind is not a passive receiver of information, but an active participant in shaping experience. This idea has influenced everything from cognitive science to literary theory. Criticisms and challenges. No great work is without its critics, and Kant's dense, technical style has frustrated many readers. Some have argued that Kant's distinction between phenomena and noumena is incoherent, or that his categories are arbitrary. Others have questioned whether his system can really explain the objectivity of science or the nature of morality. Yet, even critics acknowledge that Kant raised the right questions. What can we know? What must the mind contribute to knowledge? Where are the limits of reason? Conclusion. Why read Critique of Pure Reason? In sum, Kant's Critique of Pure Reason is a foundational text for anyone interested in philosophy, science, or the nature of human understanding. It asks us to reconsider the relationship between the mind and the world, challenging us to see that our experience is always already shaped by the structures of our own cognition. Though difficult, the reward for grappling with Kant is immense. A deeper appreciation for the complexity of knowledge, the limits of certainty, and the astonishing power of human reason. Whether you're a student, a philosopher, or simply curious about how we know what we know, Kant's masterpiece remains as relevant today as it was over 2 centuries ago. That concludes our comprehensive overview of Immanuel Kant's Critique of Pure Reason. If you enjoyed this summary, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more deep dives into the world's greatest books and ideas. Thank you for watching. Please do subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon, in order to foster a greater sense of inspiration.